Okay, check this out. So I did a video some weeks ago on Factoid, and they released it now as being its own plugin, basically as an AU and a VST. Um, and I hadn't used it since that video, to be honest with you. I kind of was just doing other stuff, which is fine, but because I always come back to it, I know at some point. But I decided to just play with it a little more with the drums. Now, usually you scrambling stuff in here and you're randomizing the time to come up with unique, interesting um, ideas. But since they made it a AU and a VST, um, and they added this section over here where it's almost like a mixer where it can mix parts and break down parts, I thought to myself, this would be cool to split some drums up. Now I know in Ableton you can right click on a drum pattern, on a clip or whatever you want to call it. Some people call this a clip, a loop, whatever. And you can convert to drums to new MIDI, and then it'll give you the drums, which is great because you get the drum patterns. But I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if you could do it with the audio? Well, sort of you can. So in the past, I would take a loop like this and I would go in and dissect where the hat is, chop the drum loop up, right? Which people still do, and I still do occasionally. Oops, I didn't mean to start it. Well, you got a glimpse of it. I was sampling something else too, but you could go in and chop out a kick, chop out a snare, and that's all great. But what if you wanted to keep it together, but you still wanted each part separate and you want to do it faster? Well, Factoids kind of can do it, and I'm not saying it's perfect by any means. This drum loop came from Non-Jura. He uses the SP404. He's an SP guy, right? SP head, and he made this drum pack. I bought it, and so I was like, well, I kind of wouldn't mind having those drums separated, but not have to sit there and do it manually. Well, Factoid, if you look here, can separate parts. Now the challenge is figuring out which part is what, because it's all these different colors, all these different parts. But I figured out that was the hi-hats immediately, and I figured out that is a snare. The rest of them are part of the kick and the compression and stuff that's built into the sound. Well, that's even easier, right? So all I had to do, if you look right here, I didn't scramble it, because if I scramble it, then it just puts it in all kinds of order, different order. But they have a drag export. And what do? You drag it straight to the timeline. So I did just that. And I broke it down. So here's the kick, here's the snare, and here's the hi-hat. I'll play them for you individually so you get an idea of what it sounds like. Here's the kick. Turn the metronome off. So you have all that extra compression and that air in there. It's definitely more airy with that portion of it. Here's the snare, which I think the snare came out and the hi-hat came out the best, but you still slightly hear the hi-hat in there. You can see it actually in between it too. But it's much easier to clean up now because all you're doing is removing the hi-hat portions in between it. So then I did the snare, the hi-hat right here. The hi-hat's actually probably the best because I'm just soloing out that one part. So here's what it sounds like. Not bad, right? So you could take the hi-hats. Now you got a more clear understanding what the hi-hats sound like, the snare, if you wanted to take this loop, this portion, and then build something from it. This is not the way I think Factoid was meant to be used, but I think it's kind of a cool thing that you can do if you wanted to. Another thing I thought about doing was going back down the Factoid and doing this. Take the snare out, or this portion of the snare, drop it back in, and now see if you can dissect it even further and get the hats out maybe. So let's see what that sounds like. But I got to turn it on, huh? That's usually how that works. still there though. So it may be a challenge, and I think what it is that it's grabbing the in between stuff that you can't see. This is the dry wet here. So yeah, it's kind of tough getting it extra clean. But not bad, I must say. All right, let's stop this. Not bad though. So if you know, it's an option. Obviously, this is not what it's made for. I'm just being blunt about that, but it definitely is just cool that you have it as a feature because you can even see in the kicks. Here's some of the hats that are still there. Those little hats like to stay around apparently, but nonetheless, it's not the greatest. But it's a cool way if you wanted to split up the drums or whatever. You could probably do this on your own drums too. Um, if you brought in something like this one's got a lot more compression and things going on in here to make this sound the way it sounds. Here's what it sounds like. Um, you can hear, I want to say like I hear vinyl compression. I hear other stuff going on in there. So yeah, these drums are a lot dirtier than some drums, but if you found some drums that were pretty clean, like a break or something, and you wanted to pull them out, you might be able to separate each part pretty good if you wanted to use that feature. Anyway, Factoid is not meant for that, and I don't want to promote it as that necessarily, but I think it's kind of cool that it can do some things along that nature. So yeah, if you get a chance to grab Factoid, it's definitely worth the while. And I think now with this extra feature here, it's going to be interesting. I got to play with it a little bit more to see what I can come up with on some loops. It'll be fun to try out. So just wanted to share that with you. And that is it. All right. And I'm out.